One of the things you realize when you start awakening is how crazy the world is, and consequently, how crazy the people living in the world are. Most people, probably like 97% of human beings, are actually insane. To quote Michael Elner, "Just look at us. Everything is backwards, everything is upside down. Doctors destroy health, lawyers destroy justice, psychiatrists destroy minds, scientists destroy truth, major media destroys information, religions destroy spirituality, and governments destroy freedom." I've been aware of the insanity of the world for a while, but until relatively recently, I had no idea how deep the rabbit hole went. When I started awakening, I realized that the world is basically an insane asylum. But I thought that at least the doctors, nurses, and owners of the asylum were sane. The truth is, the doctors and the nurses and the owners of the insane asylum are actually more insane than the average person. You see, it's not just that the world is crazy, it's designed to be that way. J. Krishnamurti once said,
"Everything in the world is put together so that it hurts you. Our education, which is so rotten, hurts you."
This is true, and it's also true that it's set up like that on purpose. The Buddha said, "Life is suffering," but nobody seems to have ever asked, why? Why is life suffering, and why is the world insane? I get the sense that the very few people in the world who begin awakening focus too much on their own subjective experience of feeling peaceful, so much so that they don't question the world that they live in. This is common with New Age type people. They don't like talking about the crazy things happening in this world because they said that it's negative. This is because the New Age movement is just another trap like religion, designed to catch people who couldn't be trapped by conventional religions, and the point of conventional religions is to control people's perceptions and therefore their behavior. In the Nag Hammadi scriptures, which were written by the Gnostics around the 4th or 5th century AD, it basically says that the world is a kind of simulation.
The Gnostics were not a race, or even a people, they were a belief system. They were a perception system. And whenever they got into a place and started to communicate this perception, this knowledge, it's what gnosis means, knowledge, but a certain kind of knowledge, they were persecuted by the Roman Church who sent the boys in. So it was the Gnostic perception system that was running the Great or Royal Library at Alexandria in Egypt. This fantastic depository of ancient knowledge and ancient historical awareness knowledge, which was destroyed in a sequence over a period by the Roman Church. And the most significant one, the most talked about one, happened around 400 AD, just after. And the Gnostics, when you see what they were saying, you can see why the Roman Church wanted to destroy them. Now, it seemed that what the Gnostics believed had been lost, the detail of it anyway. But then, in 1945, a sealed jar was found, an earthen jar, at a place called Nag Hammadi, about 70, 80 miles north of Luxor on the Nile in Egypt. And in that jar was found to be a pack of writings, codices, manuscripts that were put there by the Gnostics.
The Nag Hammadi Library. Super illegal Gnostic Gospels or not? The collection includes so-called Gnostic Gospels like the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Philip, as well as obscure mystical texts.
So suddenly, there were writings which described what the Gnostics believed in detail, and they had the great benefit of, because they were in an earthen jar all that time, they couldn't, like other religious writings, be played with and changed to fit the authority of the day. And in these Nag Hammadi writings, they describe something called the silence. the field of possibility and probability waiting to manifest, the silent. And the other thing about these ancient writings, and writings like them in religion and in ancient cultures, is they only had, as I said earlier, the symbols and analogies that fitted the society of the time. They didn't have computers. They didn't have Wi-Fi fields. And so what we're looking at are descriptions using the symbols of the time. We can now update them. But what the Gnostics also called the silence was the father of all. They were trying to get across in a simple way the creator of all. Not a man with a beard on a throne, the creative force of all, the father of all. And this is from one of the Nag Hammadi texts, talking about this silence. He is an incomprehensible one, but it is he who comprehends all, and nothing exists outside of him. But all exists within him, and he is boundary to them all, as he encloses them all, and they are all within him. There is no place outside of him, describing all that is, has been, and ever can be, the force that drives all things. But they said, and this is so the really massively relevant part to the world that we live in, they said that the silence was the creative force, but there was a fake God which had created this reality that they call the physical world. They said the physical world is a prison created by an evil fake God. Spirit, awareness, as I would call it, is entrapped in the body. Salvation, escape from this entrapment, comes from knowledge or gnosis of self and reality. And gnosis is knowledge, yes, but it's not knowledge, names, dates, places knowledge. It's knowledge of reality and how it works, that kind of knowledge. And they said the kingdom is invisible, which is true, because that which is beyond this reality is invisible to us. Everything else that exists. Now, this physical world prison that they describe in their language, I call the simulation. We update it into modern language.
This is also in line with the Buddhist idea of the world being a kind of dream, and also Hindu philosophy. But the Gnostics went even further than these religions. They wrote that this simulation, this dream, was created by an inverted state of consciousness, or God, as Christians would call it, that they called Yaldabaoth. And this God, they said, basically feeds off negative emotions like fear, anger, sadness, jealousy, regret, and so on. In other words, it feeds off our suffering. In Genesis, in the Christian Bible, it's actually describing the creation of the simulation. The Bible is just a watered down and manipulated version of the information in the Nag Hammadi scriptures. And when Christians and other religious people pray, they are basically worshipping the creator of this simulation. Reality is basically like an induced dream, as David Icke likes to say. Why do I mention any of this, and what does it have to do with how awake you are? Well, the reason why humanity is unconscious in the first place is because their unconsciousness serves the creator of this matrix. You may think of yourself as being awake, but what's the point of your awakening if you're still participating in your own enslavement? All the systems of control that we have on this planet, like religion, government, police, politics, and so on, were created to enslave you. And the people who control this world behind the scenes don't mind if you think you're awake, but are still playing their game. You can think you're awake or you like, but if you're still doing things like voting, you're just fooling yourself. Part of awakening is not only seeing through these systems, but also becoming free from them. Unfortunately, since we live on a prison planet, on a physical level, it's very difficult to be completely free. Even the human body itself is a kind of trap for your spirit. It's basically like a VR headset that makes you decode the matrix and gives you the false impression that what you're experiencing is real, to the point where most people believe that there is an external world when everything is actually just in your mind or your headset. You may be awakened naturally against war, but you still have no choice but to fund it through your taxes. This should be a red flag to any conscious being. What kind of world is it where you have no choice but to fund war? And if you don't fund war, the government comes after you and can arrest you. What many people who are spiritually awakening don't seem to realize is that there are forces working to keep everyone unconscious. And I don't mean this in some abstract way, but actually in our reality, there are people who work on a daily basis to keep you and everyone around you asleep. The people in positions of power understand the dynamics of the human mind and how consciousness operates better than the average person does. They keep this information secret, hence their secret societies. They don't just have secret societies for fun, they have them to keep secrets, and secrets are just information, and this information gives them the advantage over the people who don't have it, which is like 99% of the world basically. The people who are controlling things behind the scenes are actually like ancient psychologists who know how the mind works and how to influence it. And the average person doesn't even know anything about themselves, and they don't even care to know. This is why the world is enslaved and why it's a madhouse. Seeing and understanding all of this is part of spiritual awakening, because if you know what is going on in the world around you and why it's happening in the way it is, the people doing it can't have any control over you. They can influence and control most people around you, but they can't control you, because not only do you know yourself, but you also understand how the world around you works and what methods are being used to try and control you. Consequently, you end up living in a world where most people are basically under mind control and therefore are spiritually asleep, and those who aren't are very rare.